There's your clean carburetor.
This is not my carburetor.
Yeah, I swapped
This
it.
looks, it looks way better
Yeah.
than what I gave
Ultrasonic
you.
did it good.
So what did you do? I mean, what did you, when you put this thing in the ultrasonic, what exactly did you do?
So I gave it a bath of 100% concentrated green coolant, which works really good to degum everything.
Okay.
Learned that from Nitro engines, little RC car engines.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So did 3 or 4 baths on every part in that, and it heated up to about 180 something. Burned my hands when I pulled it out, but and then blew it all out.
Safety nerd.
It works really good when it's just water because it comes out hot enough that it steams all the water off of it. But yeah, so I did 2 baths of coolant, 2 or 3 baths of coolant for every part, and then did water and simple green, light simple green.
Okay, so you just was that your last bath?
Yeah,
was
just to get
green?
all the coolant out of it and get all the oily schmutz.
Yeah.
And then blew it off with a can of compressed air and good to go.
Wow, I'm really impressed with that. Now this ultrasonic that you used was the one that's from Harbor Freight, right?
Yeah,
it's really tiny.
Yeah, a little $69.
So probably if you're going to do it, honestly, I'm doing more than just like a 2100.
If you want a 4-barrel or something like that, yeah, the 2-barrel just fit in there. I couldn't use my drop-in tray.
Right.
So that little.
Right, you just had that much room.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things with this is I was thinking that if I got one, if we were going to get one for around here, I'd probably go with one from Amazon because they do have the bigger.
Yeah, they've got
bigger
bigger like
for doing carburetor.
You could probably do a 4-barrel, but you'd have to like put 2 barrels in at a time, swap it, flip
like
it.
the old Tarnex commercial where they dip the thing halfway in,
Yeah, exactly.
turn it around, dip the other half.
Be a little bit tedious, but
Yeah, it would. I mean, this cleaned up way better than I've really wanted or even honestly cared.
yeah, and it makes it so easy.
Yeah, so that's a little cleaning tip for you guys. If you got any other cleaning tips, we got some of that from last week. Send us a comment in the section below. If you have any other tips and tricks as we're moving along through this, we are very interested in that. Trust me, guys, you should go in and read the comments in the section below because there's a lot of good information down there for you to review. Some guys are putting good stuff in there, so if we give it a thumbs up or we say, hey, this is a really great idea, probably want to go in and use it. All right, dude. Well, I guess I'm going to do the hard part because this is my bailiwick, unfortunately, and not yours.
Have fun assembling your ancient technology.
All right, so what I'm going to talk about right now is lubrication. We're going to go in and lubricate all of the moving parts on this carburetor, either as we go through or before we start. I've already gone ahead and lubricated my accelerator arm here, and also that spring there is part of the accelerator pump system. You want to make sure that that thing's got good mobility and is lubricated. Typically what I'll do is I'll use a product like Gibbs oil. Now I've had guys sit there and say, why do you use Gibbs oil? I use Gibbs oil because it just makes me happy. I like it. It's a product that I enjoy. I don't get any money from Gibbs oil. I'm not getting any blowback, kickback, chuckback, whatever you want to call it. I am not seeing a dime from these guys. I just like the product. So that's what we're doing. We're going in and we have lubricated pretty much everything. We've lubricated the choke plate. You can see that nice and quiet in operation now, no squeaky squeaks. Anytime you have squeaky squeaks on your arms and all, it's going to be a problem for operation with the carburetor. It's going to cause sticking with things, so you want to make sure that all this is operating correctly. Now we do have a sticking point on this carburetor. When the throttle plates are completely closed, they are sticking a little bit. You can see that right there. It's a little hard to make them move forward. So the first thing I'm going to do, since I know I have a sticking point there, is I'm going to open the plates up by turning the screw clockwise until I get to a point that it's not sticking. Now they're still going to be closed because I did not have the screw in contact with the throttle arm. There we go. So now that arm is in position. All right, so what I want to talk about real quickly here is what I've done with my tabletop. Now I've got our little table out here. I've got the black tablecloth on it, and I have all the parts that I'm going to be using separated out. We have the power valve system. We have the accelerator pump system, choke. Everything is separated out so I can find it, so I'm not hunting around for it while I'm trying to put the carburetor back together. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this thing and start working on the accelerator pump system to get some of the parts back in here. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about making sure everything is same. We have the original check ball for this point in the carburetor, and what you want to do is if it does come with check balls, you want to replace them with a brand new one. You can see how nice and shiny this one is compared to this one, any of this kind of junk that's on here is going to be a problem for possibly causing that thing to not go where it's supposed to go. This goes down inside of that port. Can I get it to go in there? Holy moly. I should go play basketball. Got that in. Little plastic piece. All right, this piece sits in here this way. And then there is a screw that goes in on top of it, and there should be in your kit a gasket for this in the bottom of it. And then you're going to start digging around for all your stuff. So if there's two in this kit, there's a larger one and a smaller one. There's the larger one. If you're doing this on one of these early carburetors that has this screw, set screw in the top of it, you're going to want the smaller, thicker one. That's the one that goes on here. Now normally I'll take this and set it flat so that the check ball goes back down where it's supposed to go. Problem is I'm not going to be able to see whether this is sitting correctly or not. All right, when you're doing the accelerator pump on these, there's a clip that comes in the kit that you insert on here. Then you bring the arm into this. There are 3 positions on these accelerator, or 4 positions on this accelerator pump. As soon as I get this thing in here, and this is always a ticklish problem. There we go. It is a crimp fit, so it'll stay in place like that. Anytime you're working on these, the accelerator pump system, I've already got the arm installed here, but this arm is almost always, in everything I've ever seen from Ford, in the second position that's closest to the accelerator pump. And this one is almost always in the second position, sometimes in the third position, depending on your carburetor setup. You will want to get yourself a set of service manuals to find out where the accelerator pump arm on this end needs to be. This one we know needs to be in the second position because we've looked it up in the service manuals, and that's where this one sits. If this were a big block 390, we would be moving it, but I don't want to say that that's the be-all and end-all. Consult the service manuals. They'll tell you what you need to know. I'm going to flip it over now, and what I'm going to do is I am going to install the spring, and then I'm going to install the accelerator pump itself on here. And I am going to try and get a couple screws started through there and there. Sometimes I can make this work and sometimes it doesn't want to work at all. And now I'm going to push that down and get my screwdriver and start setting these. There we go. We get these 2 good and started, and that should allow the other ones to go right on in there. Don't need to gorilla up on these screws, you just need them to be marginally tight. That should be good to go. So we got our accelerator pump system set up, so now I'm going to take and move on to the main idle screws and put those in. I'm going to hand start these. I don't want to start them with a screwdriver because I don't want to risk boogering up the threads. These springs that are on here need to be on here because they're going to help that screw stay set where it's supposed to be, but also allow you for adjustment. Some of the later carburetors actually had a cap that went on the end of this, and that cap was there for limiting the amount of idle adjustments that you could do so that you're not putting the dyno juice out into the air in ways that you shouldn't, according to the friends at the EPA. Get that one started in there. Okay, it started up. Using my bigger screwdriver because it's a bigger thread or bigger plate on this one. I'm going to turn this in until it seats. This one's a little bent. Okay, that's seated, so we're going to come back out on both of these 1.5 turns. And you'll do that as your starting point for when you're doing your testing, and then you kind of move out from there. We talked about that in one of our other videos on this carburetor series. So that is your idle mixture screws in place. Now I'm going to start moving on to the stuff inside of the carburetor. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this piece here from in here. But I'm also going to go ahead and pull this off right now so I can take a look and make sure that screen is in decent shape. It's a 5/8. Sometimes you just got to smack it. All right, now on these Autolites, that is your screen. I'm not sure if these screens are available. Typically, they're usually in pretty good shape. This one, I got good visual through it. I can take this screen, I can put it up to the light and see if there's a lot of particulate and mess in there. And on this one, we're in really good shape. I don't see anything bad. So this fuel system was pretty well cared for back in the day. I'm going to remove the old brass pickup for the fuel system. This is where your needle and seat are at. Gotta get that out of there. Find the old gasket and get it out of there. I'm going to install the new one. This is a 3/8 nut system on here. I use nut drivers on this stuff because it's just a little easier to manage. Doesn't need to be gorillaed, just needs to be tight. Now I'm going to install my jets. This is going to be exciting from where I'm sitting because it's really hard for me to see where I'm at. These are the correct 47 jets that we got from National Parts Depot for this application. First one's always easy to get in, the second one's always a little harder. Be very gentle installing these. When you're using your screwdriver, very light hand work on it so that you don't damage it. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the booster system together. Again, you're going to want, this is basically, as I said last week, this is just a weight. And you have a check ball that comes with the kit, which we're going to use. We're going to throw that down its throat. And then the weight goes in on top of it. Here's your booster plate gasket. This goes down after you put your weight and ball in there, or ball then weight. And then you kind of scooch that down in there, jiggle it around until that is all sitting the way it's supposed to sit. And you take this gasket here, set it on there, and put that in there. And you have to kind of jiggle it around in order to get the screw to seat, because the weight actually goes up inside of the screw itself. All right, now what I'm going to talk about now is your float. So we have 3 floats here. This is the original float. This is the aftermarket that we got from National Parts Depot. This one is also from National Parts Depot, but it is a poly float. This one is probably a good one if you're a little worried about driving it on a daily basis and possibly pinholing an original style brass float. These things are pretty rock solid. I've never had a problem with a brass float, even with ethanol fuels. The F100 is running brass floats in it, and I've had those things in there since we started driving that truck. Never had a moment's issue from it. So I'm probably not going to run the poly float. This is all about personal preference on something like this. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to set up my new float with the stuff from my old float. Now you will see that there is a spring on here that needs to be set up inside the float. And I'll show you how that installs in just a second. But the spring actually mounts with the pivot arm here on the back side of the float itself. And then this piece right here will sit against the wall of the float. Now these are available, and you might wonder what that spring is for. That spring is actually a dampening spring to keep the float from jostling around whenever you're crossing bumps and stuff. I'm going to take this one off of here, set it aside, and I'm going to attempt to get this separated and pull this out and install it in the new float with a new clip. Pair of needle nose pliers will get that clip installed, and now that's ready for use. And then This won't go on right now, but we'll want to install it like this. So that runs up underneath, and this is in the wind until we put it inside. Next piece that goes on is we'll put this aside for a second, and we'll grab our needle and seat and set up our needle and seat. Now this is your brand new needle system. I shouldn't say needle and seat. This is actually a brand new needle that will sit down in the new brass seat in here. This is your clip that holds everything together. A little hard for me to probably show you this going together, but that's how this mounts, and it can go this way, it can go this way, but it does need to go on here. I'll pull that back up and out of the way. Install the needle. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in here. This spring goes up against the wall. The needle goes down inside of the seat, and that sits like this. And then you take a screwdriver and you push the arm over the nut here, and this can get kind of ticklish. I may have to use the other arm. There's two arms that come in these kits. I'm going to pull that back out, and I'm going to try doing something else here. Spin that till it's on a flat, because we didn't tighten it too much before. Try putting this back in here and see if we can get it to go in there that way. If this doesn't work, we will move over to the later model style clip. This should work though, at least in theory. There. All right, now that's all set up. Needle and seat is ready to go. We'll need to adjust our float, and they have a system for doing that. So I'm going to pull that out and use the included measurement device for setting up your float, which is this. Right now, this float is bent all the way down to the bottom of its movement because there is no real give as far as the seating is concerned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up, now this is set to run at 29/64 or 14/30 seconds. And this is a dry setting, so you're going to have to probably reset this after you get it done, after you get everything finished up. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and bend it up, because that's what you do with these Autolite floats, is you bend them up for the top position. So that's my mark, and I'm trying to get it pretty much level with it sitting right there at 29/64. There is so much ish in this that it's unbelievable. I would like to see there be some kind of kit that you could get. Ford used to have an actual tool that was set to the 29/64 level for a dry float setting. One of the things I've typically done in the past when I'm dry setting these, because I'm going to redo it when I get fuel in here, is I try to make it so that the float is level with the machine surface of the carburetor right here. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to push it down just a little bit and play around with it to try to get it to where it's sitting pretty much level with the top of this. 29/64, good luck. I hope you do well finding that spot, because it's always been a problem for me. All right, that seems to be in pretty good shape. Rest position is probably going to be about there. Okay, come back up just a little bit. We've got a brand new gasket that we're going to throw onto here. Our old gasket was this style with the 3 holes. There's also the different one with a this setup on it as well. So you need to make sure you don't use the wrong gasket. Always keep your old gaskets when you're doing this before you put everything back together. And that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and get the top back on it. I'm going to just temporarily install the center stalk. And just do that temporarily, not completely tighten it down. This one had the tag facing that way, so that's what I'm going to do. Sometimes you'll see these tags, they'll be facing on the back here. Get these screws in. lightly tighten all of them in. Everything on these carburetors, none of it needs to be gorillaed to get it to install. As I do that, you can eyeball these and make sure they're right when you're putting them in. All right, so now I'm going to talk lightly about the choke system on here because quite frankly our choke is busted out on this one. It's missing parts. All right, so this is your screw for idle adjustment. You would turn this in to get a faster or slower idle adjustment, in or out. This is the cam for that activity. Like I said, there should be another piece on here that sits on here that holds this in place. I don't have that part because this is a carburetor I didn't have a lot of play in, so to speak. But what I'm going to do for us to be able to tune the car is I'm going to take a standard BB, a 1.77 BB that you get for your Crosman. Don't shoot your eye out. And I'm going to put that down inside of there. And I have modified the choke assembly on the inlet here. I've put a bevel on it and I've sanded down the perimeter of this a little bit so that I can put that in there. There's a gasket that goes down first, and then we get into a case of trying to make the monkeys talk too nicely to each other. And I'll go into the rest of this once I get this thing set. You've got an L on your choke horn here. That goes into this piece here, this hole here. And then that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put this screw down in there to get it to set lightly so it doesn't go anywhere. All right, so there is a small clip that holds that piece on there. You can see why these parts get lost in the translation. Somebody takes the carburetor apart and these pieces go in the wind. That goes on there. And I'm going to set it up like this. And then this arm falls off because I don't have the I don't have the parts that I need to make it right. Let me get that back on there. Don't worry about this. Nothing to see here. Move along. And I'm going to try to get that spun around. Now you know why I put that other screw in there. I'm going to install it on here, hopefully. That goes on there. And I'm not going to try to get the C-clip on there right yet. And then I'm going to try to get this to go back on here where it's supposed to go. Hold your breath. You want to know why mechanics cuss? You're seeing it right now. Okay, I'm going to put one more of my set screws in now. Because I want to hold that in play so I can try to get the C-clip on there. Why I'm doing this, I don't know. Because none of this stuff is going to work anyway. That there. I have C-clip, or E-clip. This is an E, not a C-clip. Miraculously, that went in. And last but not least, I'm going to install this screw. And I'm going to tighten all this down. Like I said, I don't have all the parts for this. Now, there are places you can call to get parts for these kind of things. Some of these parts are becoming available for the choke systems on these old cars. Let me set it down here. And I'm going to go over what those parts are here in just a second. Okay, we should be good to go now on this. Our choke should be set. If you, I'm not going to go into, I can't go into choke operation on this carburetor because of what we've got going on this side. If you want, I can get the parts in from Allstate Carburetor, one of our buddies out there that does rebuilds on these, and we can show you exactly how to set the choke up on the countertop. If you want to see that, leave a comment in the section below. Let us know what you think about it. All right, now I'm going to work on my power valve system. We have the 8.5 power valve that we got separately from the guys at National Parts Depot. That goes right in here. I need to set this thing up flat so that it sits centered up on there. What I'll do a lot of times is I'll kind of walk it back and forth until that gasket centers. If it's not centered, you could have a problem with your power valve. Another thing to keep in mind we've talked about this before, but since some of you may not have seen this, this surface right here can be a real problem for power valves if you're not careful. Because what can happen is this can be sitting right on the pump cover here, and you don't want that. This one's not. This one's nice. It's got plenty of room there. After you put the gasket in, it'll be good. Because if that's sitting on that pump cover, what'll happen is you'll over tighten the bowl screws down here, and especially these two back ones on some of these early carburetors are a real issue for this. So put my gasket on, set it in place, and my pump cover. Now, if you do have a bent pump cover, what you can do is you can take a very large flat blade screwdriver and a hammer, inappropriate use of a tool, and you can whack right here between the pump cover bulge and the screw hole, and a lot of times get that to flatten back out to where you need it to sit. I'll get these started. I'm going to get these tightened up. Don't gorilla. There's no need to get super duper tight. Don't tighten one side up all at once. Go across from it. Always working a cross pattern on this stuff. And just kind of slowly work them in. So that's it. We have rebuilt this carburetor. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but you know what? It looks pretty good inside. This carburetor was not in really bad shape. I'm pretty happy about that. Speaking of being happy, you should be happy about checking out the Patreon account. At the $10 a month level, you get monthly meetings with me. We have a ball. We'll have anywhere from 5 to 20 people showing up, just depending on what week it is and what everybody's got going on. But more importantly than those meetings at the $10 a month level, if we've done anything to help you learn how to work on your car and get more confidence in what you're doing, think about joining us on Patreon just to show your support for what we do around here. The money does not come to me. The money goes straight out to the guys who come in here on Saturdays and to Andrew, who comes in here during the week to help me edit so that I can go and do some of the other things that need to be done to run a real business, which is what this is. So think about that. Think about helping us out on that level. Also, subscribe to the channel. We're on our march to 100,000 subscribers, and I am almost completely tired of talking about this. We're at 97,385. Not that I'm keeping track. But in any case, if you guys will get us to 100,000 before Christmas, I will absolutely stop talking about subscriptions. There will be a little bug that we put up probably at the front of the episode and at the end of the episode, and you won't hear me talking about subscriptions anymore. So this section of the video will go away. It'll probably be a minute and a half shorter. So that's a way to look at it, to think about, hey, I can stop watching videos quicker from these guys. Another thing I want you to do is to check out the Super Thanks. That's right, Super Thanks. I hate that name. I wish I could come up with something else to call it, but that's what they call it down there. So down here or down here underneath me somewhere here on the video, they've got a thing where you can do a thing just for this particular video. If we were helpful to you, you can pop us $2 or 20 cents. I don't really care. I mean, I do care because it's nice of you to pop 20 cents, but you know what I'm saying. It's a way for you to tell us thanks on that level as well. So that's really all that we got going on that. Do me a favor, folks. Be kind to each other, love on each other, treat each other nice. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time on Auto Resto Mod. Hello, I am your Autolite carburetor. I will ruin your day. Do you need to get to work? Not today, sucker!